Now that we know a little bit more about the layout and activity relationship, we're almost ready to begin running our application. However, because Android Studio requires every run to be attached with either a real device or a virtual device, we should probably first set one up. So I'm just going to take a quick break away from what we were talking about in the previous section to help you set up an emulator. What you'll want to do, if you don't have a real device attached to your app, is go to your AVD manager, and we're going to set up a virtual device, otherwise known as an emulator, together. So right off the bat, we have several options to choose from. Most of these, in fact all of them, if you've never set one up before, will have this download key, and none of them will have this green run button. So these are basically ways to just download different devices. We're going to ignore that. What we'll do is create a virtual device together. Now, you can specify a TV device, a Wear device like a watch or something, or a tablet. We're actually going to go with a phone device. Most of our tutorials are targeted towards phones, smartphones obviously, rather than tablets, Wear, or TV. So there are a bunch of different skins to choose from. I guess I should say that these are more like hardware profiles than just skins. And this doesn't encompass all of the possible Android devices. Oh my goodness, there are so many Android devices that this list would be massive if we were to encompass them all. What we can do is create new hardware profiles or import hardware profiles if we're not satisfied with this list. For example, if you're developing for Samsung, any of the Samsung Galaxy lines, none of them are included in here. I used to have one, so I had to go and download extra hardware for that. However, if you see what you like on this list, like I said, I usually work with a Pixel, but I already have several Pixel devices set up, so let's just go with the Nexus one. So we're just going to go ahead, select this, click Next. It's going to prompt us to enter an API level that we want associated with this device. Now, if you're testing an application of a higher API level, in our case, my application is 27, then I'm going to want my device to have at least API 27, which means it could be 27 or 28, or 29 or 30, but I don't think those are out yet. So what I'd want is to associate this with 27. If I did a 23, for example, probably not going to run on this device. So the later API levels, the better, really, but you may very well have to download these extra APIs. So I'm just going to go with 27. We'll click Next. Give this guy a name. I'm fine with this. This is again just going to be kind of a test dummy device anyway. You can change this guy if you want, but we're happy with that. You can change the API and how it looks. Startup orientation here, graphics, automatic, hardware or software. You can set further advanced settings such as setting the memory or the amount of RAM the device has. But these I like to leave alone where possible and customize them later on as needs be. If the app is very, very computationally intensive, you'll probably want to up your RAM and your internal storage, but generally speaking, this is fine to use the defaults. Okay. If you want a different skin, Nexus 1 is fine, but if you have different skins saved, again, you could download them from elsewhere. Just go ahead and browse and find yours. So when you click Finish, it's going to add your device to the list. So as you can see, Nexus 1 API 27 is now being added. Okay, 650 megabytes on my disk. API level 27, this gives me the size of the device, and if I want to now run this, I simply click on my green Run button. It's going to take a few seconds and it's going to load up. So as you can see, it's started up here. It looks very much like the device. In fact, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what the Nexus 1 looks like, but I don't have one, so I don't know. And other than being restricted in a few functionalities, this works exactly like a real device would. So you can use it just like a device. You can take a look at applications. You can go into the file hierarchy of the device, so on and so forth. There are, like I said, a few things that you can't do, such as take pictures or use the microphone, use the Google Assistant or anything like that. So it has a lot of the functions of a real device, just a little more limited. Okay. Otherwise, you can view all your applications. Just go ahead and lift this up. You get your applications here, and you can use it just like you would anything else. You can Gmail, so on and so forth. Okay, just go home from here. All right. So now that your device is started up, we can go ahead and close the AVD manager, and we can actually run this application. So, like I said, every run has to be associated with a virtual device like this, or you can actually plug in your real device through USB and run it on that instead. So I'm just going to run it through the virtual device. We're going to go ahead and click Run. If we want to use a different device, we can select one and it will start up the device, then run the application. In this case, we're actually just going to use an existing device that is already running. This is our Nexus 1. Let's select this and we'll just go ahead and run it. Now, this might take a couple minutes, so I'm going to pause the recording, and once it's finished, then I'll return. Alright, so finally the device is loaded. Took me, I guess 20 seconds, something like that. But it might take a little longer depending on how slow your computer's running. Often this does take a while. So, as you can see, I can press on this button and nothing is happening because this function is essentially empty. Remember, this is a comment. Everything after the single or the two forward slashes is a comment, so is basically ignored by the compiler. It's as if it's not there. It's just there for us to read. But this is again how it's supposed to look. If we go to activity main, it has our intro to Android here and the button. Also note the fact that this device is much smaller than my Pixel screen. I think my Pixel screen is about 1080 by 1780 or something like that. Not sure exactly. But this device was much smaller. But because I'm using my constraint layout, it has still nicely taken those boundaries into consideration and has repositioned everything. So that's why I recommend constraint layouts rather than just basic linear layouts. Okay, so now you have an emulator set up, you can now start running your projects. We'll move on to the next step, which will be actually implementing something interesting. So let's actually have this application do something once the button has been pressed. So hopefully you played around with these a little bit, but if you haven't, now's your chance, because I'm going to stop this section here. When we come on back, we're going to have some actual interaction between the UI elements that we've added or accessed through variables and the functions that are accessing the on clicks of that button.